This is a Sandy Boy Productions podcast.
Welcome to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast, where we help women remove the overwhelm of living their most holistic life. This is the place to find evidence-based nutrition tactics, healthy lifestyle and wellness tips, abundance mindset, and easily implementable low-tox living strategies so you can rise up to your full potential and protect your family's health. I'm your host, Stacey Heine, certified holistic nutritionist and better living advocate. Now, let's get empowered with some simple swaps that make a big impact for optimal wellness.
Welcome to episode 34 of the Urban Pharmacy Podcast. I hope you are well today, my friend. Today, I have an amazing guest. It is my friend Talia Fuhrman, Nutritarian chef who just released her first cookbook, Desserts to Live For, which is a collection of heavenly desserts with zero guilt, zero sacrifices, and zero risks of bodily harm. Only good for you ingredients. The eldest daughter of Dr. Joel Fuhrman, who I've been following for over a decade now in regards to lifestyle and nutrition advice, and his wife Lisa, Talia learned from an early age about the connection between the foods that we eat and the state of our health. Inspired by this message, she went on to earn a bachelor's degree in Nutritional Science at Cornell University. Talia's career has focused on connecting the core concepts of nutritional excellence in a way that is refreshing and entertaining, filled with practical tips and occasional touches of whimsy. In 2014, she released her first book, Love Your Body, a guide for young adults who want to embark on a healthy lifestyle. Now, with Desserts to Live For, she's widening her audience and exploring the wonders of healthful treats. Using this book as your tool, she writes, you can eat your cake and stay healthy too. Talia's writings and recipes have been featured in publications and websites including Women's Health Magazine, Psychology Today, Rodale Press and Vegetarian Times, Mind Body Green, and Thought Catalog. We really talk in this episode about the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, the ups and downs of life, and the importance of course, eating more plants. Talia is, as she said in her bio, whimsy, funny, inspiring, and somebody who I am super glad to have in my life. I hope you enjoy this episode, and if you listen, please tag us so we know that you heard it. All right, until next time, here's Talia. Talia Fuhrman, welcome to the Urban Pharmacy episode. We're not on an episode, we're on a podcast. This is one episode of the podcast. Welcome, my friend. I'm so excited to have you here.
It is so fantastic to be here, and connecting with you has been nothing but the most wonderful, uplifting conversations. So I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation with your audience.
Oh, thanks, friend. Okay, so a little background. Talia and I know each other through Instagram. Social media is so good. And I have known about Talia for several years because I've been following her father, Joel Fuhrman, who is an amazing doctor in the plant-based world and honestly like the natural living world. So I know that Talia has grown up that way, and we're going to be touching on that today. But I also saw Talia on Chef AJ, which you all know I was on not that long ago too. And she is just a ray of sunshine. And I've been following her on social media, on Instagram, and she literally just brings light to your life. And, you know, this podcast is not just about plant-based living, but it's also about leveling up, rising up, becoming your full, self. And doing it with a smile on your face. And Talia does such an amazing job at that. So I can't wait to hear more about you, Talia, today. So my first question for you is just, where in the world did you get your vivaciousness? Like how are you so lively and outgoing? Where does that come from? Your mom, your dad? Like, where does that come from?
I think it does come from my mom and dad because genes absolutely play a role. I would say that I can see a lot of my childhood self in my adult self, and I'm sure most of us can see elements of our personalities in who we were as a little kid. And it's been a big priority of mine into adulthood to carry over the qualities that I've always appreciated in myself and that serve me the best into adulthood. And so I think there's always nature versus nurture. There's a big nature component there. So I will thank them for that. My dad is the optimist of the family. My mom is the realistic, more pessimistic one. They balance each other out very well. But I see myself being unique. Everybody's unique, and I see that in myself. And so I can't say that this vivaciousness, like my uniqueness, is in anybody else in my family, but I know that I'm the product of my parents, and thank you, parents, for also giving me life.
I love that. I love how you're saying you're bringing, the elements of your childhood, of who you were growing up, into your adult life. And I honestly think that so much of us as humans, we suppress that in society these days. We're suppressing who we truly are. And, I used to get in trouble for bad conduct, and I would get in trouble for talking too much in school. But you know what? That's actually my gift now. It is my gift to be able to speak, and we're doing right now, and, bringing forth what I really feel needs to be in the world. And maybe too much talking is not such a bad thing. So that is a beautiful way to look at it. And I love that. Okay. So I think, Talia, that you are an entrepreneur, but we're going to get into that. What do you do on a daily basis?
Ooh, I'm glad you asked that question because I do prioritize my health, mental, physical, all of it first, and then everything else comes second as much as possible, because I know that's not realistic. Jobs get stressful sometimes, so it's not something that is realistic every single day, but as much as possible, I take the time to stretch or go on a hike 5 days a week, because that's my favorite form of exercise. I'm such a nature lover. That works for me personally. I go food shopping on the weekends. I do a big health food store shop. I like to do my cooking on Sundays, so I know I don't have to think about it as much during the week. I make dinner dates with my girlfriends a couple times a week. I very much need to have my life, basically my work life and social life for me is kind of intertwined, because when I'm at my best and prioritizing wellness, then I do a better job with my job and my work. And so it's constant balancing act, I know, for everybody else out there too, of just fitting in wellness, your personal life and your professional life. But I do prioritize my mental health first and then everything else second. But I do think that the domino effect of that is I do a better job at work, and I'm actually more productive. I do a better job, and I do more because I'm good. When you're happier, you do better work. When you're miserable, it's you can't concentrate as well.
This is crazy. This is so true. This is what I'm creating a 12-month course on, to be honest, Talia. It's teaching, entrepreneurs, moms, women, but mainly entrepreneurs, that their self-care and taking care of their body temple, their mind, and prioritizing themselves comes first if they want to excel in everything else. We cannot really reach that full potential, or maybe we can, but by the time we get there, we're going to be burnt out, because we're not taking care of ourselves.
Exactly.
This is so good. So what do you do professionally? What do you do? What's your job?
Yeah. So my full-time job right now in my life, because it's always changing, is marketing my new healthy desserts cookbook. So it's called Desserts to Live For. And I spent years working on this part-time. I started working on the recipes and writing the book all the way back in 2014. And so I have to make my past 20 something self proud, who was breaking her ass on this, proud as well, with getting it out there as much as possible. So that is a big part of my job right now. And I also have a few other projects in the works. Once I'm not marketing my book as much, I'm going to be starting a healthy desserts edibles company. So I am stoked about that. We can get into a bit later in the conversation that I do have chronic pain. So whenever I have insomnia due to the chronic pain, I take edibles and I don't have insomnia anymore. I know that people take cannabis for a slew of reasons, anxiety, XYZ. So I have a personal reason for loving that idea and what it's done for me. So that's that. And then I'm also working on 2 other books, kind of on and off.
Okay, you are like my spirit animal or spirit sister or whatever people call, okay, you're literally like vibing through the screen right now. I have a very deep love for the cannabis plant. We grew hemp here in Indiana last year. We're very conservative here in the state. So, but plants are healing. I think you and I can totally agree on that. And I just want to give you props for writing that beautiful and amazing cookbook, which you guys we're going to talk about here in just a second. Okay, so first off, your upcoming project, Talia, sounds literally like what I've been talking about and dreaming about, but maybe you're the person that's going to master that, because I feel like right now I just wouldn't be able to do it. So this is crazy and awesome to hear. I'm so excited. Please let me be a cheerleader for you. And then secondly, let's talk about your cookbook, because yeah. Okay. First off, creating vegan desserts is not that hard anymore. I've been doing it for, 12, 13 years. That's how long I've been vegan. But creating actual healthy vegan desserts, that's a whole other level. And we're talking about not putting the spectrum hydrogenated palm oil that I used to, use in frostings, or the white sugar or the brown sugars, or even the coconut sugars. We're not using monk fruit sugar, I don't think. No, there's no monk fruit. No. We're using whole food here. So you make your desserts gorgeous and delicious, and they're going to prolong our life. So you said it took you a few years to create this book. I can only imagine how much work went into this. All right. So tell me about what it's like making a cookbook. You started with inspiration, right? Just tell me all the things, because I'm sure it took a whole slew of people and a whole tribe to get this out into the world.
100% took a tribe. And it all started when I was in college, and where I went to school was incredibly challenging. I went to Cornell University, and I would hear around campus people saying, oh, this is the easiest Ivy League school to get into, but the hardest to graduate from. Mm-hmm. And I really felt that was killer. I studied nutrition. I was in classes with pre-med students and engineering students. So I was racking my brain and really struggling for a time there. And how does that relate to this cookbook? Instead of going out partying, getting drunk, doing all the things that people typically do to de-stress, what did I decide to do? I decided to follow a bunch of vegan food blogs and go gaga over them. So that's where, and I started baking in my dorm room. I had a little kitchen and a roommate, and I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to study anymore. I'm going to try this muffin recipe. Right. So I'd put on my favorite music, maybe like Fergie or something crazy at the time, some Britney, and I would just be, and then I would see the recipe contain, would call for some sugar of some kind or white flour. And then I was studying nutrition. I'm the daughter of Joel Fuhrman, MD, and I know about nutrition. So I'm like, I don't want this muffin that's unhealthy and has all this sugar. I'm going to find something that's good for me. And hence, so it's taking the nutrition knowledge and applying it to the baking world. And so I knew that whole fruits were the only truly healthy sweetener, and that there were some really delicious, incredibly sweet fruits out there. So medjool dates became my best friend, and I learned how to make them into like a date paste really, really easily. And then I would taste the muffins or the cookies, cakes, whatever I was making. It would taste just like the sugar version. I would bring them to parties. People thought they were not even good for you because they tasted so good. And so that was the case with every ingredient substitute. I'd see on the food blog, this was the recipe, and I'd follow the recipe, but anything that wasn't good for you, I would find a substitute. And that is where it all began, is just de-stressing in college.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And like, just speaking of de-stressing, like you're at the same time as de-stressing from like homework, you're literally de-stressing your body, because if you were to make those foods like with the sugar, your body would have been chronically stressed out and inflamed. And now you're just like fueling your brain and your body with like the optimal goodness. Hey friend, before we get too far into this episode, I want to be sure you know about how the environment plays a role on your overall health. For over a decade, I've been learning so much about the lack of health regulation in the personal care and food industries, and that's actually one of the reasons why I started this show. You deserve to know how to protect you and your family from unwanted body burden, and I share further information about how to make better choices and vote with your dollar in our private Facebook community called The Urban Pharmacy. On that note, I want to let you know about one of the easiest ways that we've switched to safer, and that's through my favorite clean beauty brand called Beautycounter. Your skin is your largest organ, and what you put on it every day matters a lot. And with a low carbon footprint, cruelty-free formulations, and high-performing results, I haven't found a better beauty brand than Beautycounter in over 5 years of working with this mission-driven brand. To learn more and shop clean, head to mybetterbeauty.com. I want you to touch on how important it is for people to understand the importance of, breaking free from sugar. And then also, if you could talk, Talia, about refined flours, because I know that, like we can make an oat flour, but just like putting whole rolled oats into the blender and making flour. But like, why is it important for us to not eat that like all the time for like every meal? Can you speak on that?
Oat flour and stuff
just refined flours, yeah, and sugar.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a big difference between, let's say, like a refined white flour, which is like the most processed flour. And I used to say the whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead, which is, there's a lot of research behind that. And with any food group in general, the more processing that's done, the more nutrients are extracted out of the whole original unprocessed food. So that's the case for white flour. Whole wheat flour is going to be less processed than white flour. It's going to be better. I know a lot of people don't eat gluten, and whole wheat has that. That's another topic, the gluten issue I'd love to touch on briefly. But as far as oat flour, that is just ground up oats. So that's not processed in any way. And so I do use that in my recipes. And there's a lot of studies showing how nutritious and protective against heart disease oats are. And I also love other flours that are similarly unprocessed. Like I use almond flour, which is just ground up almonds. And almonds are incredibly nutritious because all nuts and seeds are so powerfully protective against cancer and heart disease and all the autoimmune disorders, XYZ. So yeah, I really think the science of nutrition is utterly fascinating, but the main rule applies that you want to eat the whole food and not the processed version. And, being the daughter of Joel Fuhrman, MD, I learned all about, he coins it the Nutritarian diet, which I love that phrase. It says everything in a word where you're eating for maximum nutrient density. And so what does that mean? So we know the words vitamins and we know minerals. Those are just a handful of all of the phytochemical nutrients in plant foods. There's thousands upon thousands of micronutrients that promote optimal wellness by tackling free radicals, keeping us young, slowing the aging process, all of that. And so each plant food has a unique composition of them. And that is why nutrition is so fascinating. You can take what's in dates? Why are they actually good for us? Even though they're high in sugar, they also contain so much fiber and all these other phytochemicals. And so when we ingest it, it's digested slowly instead of rapidly. It keeps us feeling fuller longer. And actually, to complement my Desserts to Live For cookbook, I do have another book that is published, and that was came out in 2014 with Rodale News. It's called Love Your Body. And so sometimes I'll be making a recipe from the cookbook and I'll remember, Love Your Body's a nutrition book. Let me see what I wrote about strawberries. Let me see what if I'm making my strawberry shortcake cookies. And that's just one example. And I'll go through and read about just the phytochemicals in strawberries and how they keep us slim. They promote skin health. They prevent cancer or reduce our risk, you could say, and all the details. And my mind is just blown. Because we have all the science. We just have to educate ourselves on it. And there's nothing more motivating than understanding why something is healthy and that it also tastes good. And I know I'm saying a lot right now, but not ever feeling like you're ever sacrificing anything. And so to have something that's healthy and tastes amazing, why would you want to have the muffin that has the refined white flour and the sugar and the oil and all that other crap when you can have something taste just as good, even better, and understanding this keeps my skin clear. This keeps me feeling my best. I'm mentally sharp. I don't feel like having a brain fog. I can go on a hike. I can do my work, whatever it is. So I've always felt that what we eat is the base of every other thing we do in our lives, because how can we be our best when we're eating crap too?
Totally. I used to think that there was something wrong with me when I would eat like the Little Debbie, like blueberry muffins, those like little mini things. And I would want like 2 more packages of them because like my body was so depleted of nutrients. Like I was getting calories, but I was not getting nutrients. And like, I truly thought that I had like a food addiction and that there was something wrong with me. But it was because I was eating all the wrong foods. And you guys, like, you get Talia's cookbook and start making these desserts and feel the difference in your body. Feel how your cells are now actually nourished. Feel how your brain is literally thinking more clearly because everything else in your body is working more optimally because you're actually feeding it foods of the earth, whole plant foods. And I know, Talia, that like with your dad, he's teaching the Nutritarian diet. First off, actually, can you tell us about G-bombs? Because I don't think that a lot of our listeners know about G-bombs yet, and they need to know about G-bombs.
G-bombs are the best thing to keep in our minds when we're eating anything, we're going food shopping, we're eating at a restaurant, G-bombs is the way to be. So it's basically the superfoods, the foods that we're designed to eat, the foods that are going to maximize lifespan and prevent disease. You want to live into your hundreds, never get heart disease or cancer. The top two killers in America, you eat your G-bombs. So the first, it's an acronym. The first G is for grains. So cruciferous green vegetables are the healthiest foods on the planet. They're the most nutrient dense. It's they're true magic in the real world for us. So then we have onions. Onions, garlic, that family powerfully prevent cancer, heart disease, all of that. So then, so G-bombs, mushrooms. All right. Mushrooms are one of my favorite foods. I'm all about the shiitake, the portobello. Talk about if you don't eat meat or vegan, like mushrooms are everything. So mushrooms are next. They're so good. I love to talk to you a little bit about why mushrooms are so incredibly nutritious. Yeah. And so there's something called free radicals, and free radicals promote aging. We eat antioxidants to slow down the aging process to fight free radicals. So mushrooms have an antioxidant in them that goes through the cell wall into the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of our cells. And so there's no other antioxidant, there's no other food other than mushrooms that contains this particular antioxidant that combats free radicals in the mitochondria of the cell. So that's the surface level information. I wrote a blog article on my blog years ago about this. Dr. Michael Greger of nutritionfacts.org has talked about this. So when I read about that, my mind was blown because I'm just talking surface level stuff right now. To go into detail, it's just fascinating. So anyway, okay, we have greens, we have onions, we have mushrooms. Then we have berries. Berries are the most nutrient dense, healthy fruit that we can eat. And all right, greens, onions, mushrooms, berries. And then the last letter there is seeds. Seeds are the healthiest form of fat we will ever eat. So I use flax seeds, ground flax seeds, as egg substitutes in many of the recipes in the cookbook. Chia seeds are also phenomenal egg substitutes from a baking perspective. And from a health perspective, seeds are true superfoods. And we were designed to eat fat. We don't want to avoid fat. And I think if people listening want to get the takeaway, not to focus on the ratio of protein, fat, carbohydrates. That's a little bit of a myth in the nutrition world, focusing on one group more than the other. Focusing on whole plant foods, including healthy fats. People who eat even a couple ounces of nuts or seeds a day outlive those who don't eat healthy fats. And so those are also incredibly nutritious. So yes, I'll say it. Yeah, greens, onions, mushrooms, berry seeds.
Good. Awesome. So good. So we're focusing on the whole plant foods, and those are the foods that make us thrive. Those are the foods that make us live the longest. So, okay, Talia, going back to your chronic pain, where did that all start?
Yeah. And so I just wanted to also include, since we did talk about the cookbook, where people can find it. So it's on my father's website. His website is DR for Dr. Fuhrman, my last name, his last name, FUHRMAN.com. And there's a shop on the website. You click that link and you'll see the cookbook along with all of his books where you'll learn about this kind of stuff. My favorite book of his is called Super Immunity, which really is helpful for people. We just, came off the heels of a pandemic, and that teaches you how to boost your immune system, because there's also a lot of studies showing that what we eat and the strength of our immune system is incredibly strongly related to how we handle COVID. So that's that. So I just wanted to let people know they can find the book that way. They can find it if they find me on my Instagram at Talia Fuhrman, how I found you, and also my food page, Talia's Treats. So there's many different ways to find the book, and also my father's books and whatnot. We're going to be putting all those links in the show notes for sure. Sweet. Literally and figuratively. So So in terms of chronic pain, so yes, I have a very unique situation in my life. So when I was a teenager, I was a little bit of an oddball, a unique little entrepreneur. I wanted to be a pro tennis player. I was an ambivert, but also like insecure, like most 14-year-olds are. And I was in a big public school that felt very much like a college. And I'm like this little person who's late mature. So I said, Dad, I want to be a pro tennis player, because I knew that he was actually on the Olympic team in figure skating. So he's a badass in that regard. And so I knew the only way to get out of school was to tell my parents that I wanted to be a pro tennis player, because that's what I played. And so I was a little devious there, because so yeah, they gave me the permission, as long as I was playing tennis and training and doing all the things to pursue that, then I could be homeschooled, essentially.
Love it.
All good. So I went to an online school, and I started playing tennis when I was 8 years old. So I was already, by the time I requested this, I was already pretty darn good, because my dad, being an Olympic figure skater, he knew how to find the right coaches. He knew what it took. So at that point, it was also somewhat realistic. So long story short, by the time I'm 16, 17 years old, I started feeling sharp pain. And I was just incredibly physically active. And at that age, you think that you're like, you can do anything and you're going to be fine. So it was really harrowing that I actually had to quit playing tennis by the time I was like 18, 19, because how could I compete when I started getting injuries elsewhere? I have a petite frame. It just wasn't working for me. And so I ended up finishing my last year of high school and back at public school, but while in absolute agony, as a teenager. And it was one of the hardest times in my life, for sure. And I actually, from that time to this time, I've spent a lot of my life trying to heal, because every day of my life, I do live in sharp pelvic pain. There's like this main pelvic nerve, and I mean, it's a podcast all of its own, because it's a topic I can talk about, in like 5 conversations rather than like 5 minutes. But long story short, I've had failed surgeries. I've gone all over the world trying to heal. I take ice packs with me wherever I go, and it's different than having a disease that's related to what you eat and that inflammation, because I've water fasted. I've gone on the purest of pure diets, and nothing helps me in that regard. I think it's actually a physical impingement, or something is hitting the nerve, and there's alignment issues. There's it's kind of like if you get a cut, it's like not what you eat. It's sure you might heal faster, but you still got cut. You still got hit with a bullet, or there's just that sort of injury. And so my hips alignments are off, and being so active at a young age, I was going through puberty. Who knows what happened? And finding the answer is been wildly difficult. So the biggest challenge of my life, and I still live in that pain. And that's I want people to know that they can achieve their dreams despite having something like this, or whatever their unique situation is. It's it's not because I have a charmed life. It's not that XYZ, like these circumstances didn't line up magically in my favor to be able to accomplish my goals. It was because in here I wanted to do it, and I made it happen.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Okay, so can you talk a little bit, like you pointed to yourself. You're speaking of like your heart, and you're speaking of your head. Like, can you speak of what it takes you're changing the world, Talia. So do you have something that you do every single day? I mean, you say you prioritize your mental health, so that you can show up in the biggest and the best way. Are there specific things that you do on a daily basis, like really specific, that you believe are helping you, show up in the biggest and best way, that like maybe our listeners can start to practice themselves? Maybe it's meditation, maybe it's prayer. Like what do you do?
Well, thank you for the compliment. That was so sweet. And I do apologize if my dog is barking in the background. He's so sweet. And he adds to the happiness factor of my day. And he's a big thing for me. Yeah. I mean, when you asked me that question, my initial, really easy for me, I thought of my community and my support system. And every single day I'm talking to a close friend or my mom or one of my sisters. I prioritize my relationships, and that helps me get through anything. Just having this loving network around me and finding people that are the best fit for me, for close friends and all of that. And I do have a really wonderful family, and no family is perfect, but we love each other dearly. And I know that. And I think just I'm able to love myself the best because I also have strong women and strong family that we build each other up. I want to be my best self so I can help other people be their best selves, and they want to be their best selves so they can help me be my best self. And I've learned a lot, even just this year, that hurt people, and well people, lift people up. And so I think psychology is fascinating, but a big reason why I keep going in the way that I am is because of my community and that making sure I don't have toxic people in my life, making sure I have only the best quality people.
Oh my gosh, that is so good, Talia, because that's something that's practiced by the people in the blue zones, right? Like community is one of those things. And I feel like a lot of us are focusing, and I'm kind of speaking of myself here too. A lot of us are focusing on, the food, like the water, the environmental toxins, like the blah, 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 XYZ, all the things. But then are we focusing on that community aspect? Do we have that, uplifting system? And are we really analyzing the relationships that we have? Even on social media, are we following? Are we watching TV? Are we, what are the ads that are popping up in our faces? Like what are we searching for on the internet? Like these things all contribute to our well-being, like so much more than we realize. And if we want to live the longest, we really have to focus in on that community and like who we're talking to, who we're letting our dreams be, heard, who we're telling our dreams to, and are they speaking into us words of encouragement, or are they speaking maybe like weary thoughts, so that's really powerful and something that I truly, that really, really inspires me personally a lot. Okay, so before we get to the end of this episode, Talia, can we just geek out a little bit on food and like talk about like some flavors or like favorites here? What are your first top 2 recipes out of your newest book?
I love this. So I'm obsessed with my tiramisu, like thinking about this.
I need to make it like now. I want to make it so bad.
It's insanely delicious. It's got this coconut icing with ground vanilla, and it just really hits the spot. So I learned in making the tiramisu that you actually use something called ladyfinger cookies to make the layers. And so like combining the flavors of the ladyfinger cookies with the icing and all the layers and the chocolate and the cinnamon and everything. Oh my gosh, it does something.
It hits just right. Okay, so do you make the ladyfingers like from homemade, like they're from scratch? Yeah. Because that was, a lot of them. I used to work in multiple bakeries actually. So like baking is very near and dear to my heart. But like all of them had processed white sugar and egg whites. That's like a very common ingredient in ladyfingers. So, okay, we need to make the tiramisu, and then what else?
So I'm just going to open up to some random pages and show you the pictures because I got really artsy. So you can see this is like a chocolate avocado tort, and that recipe is incredible. I am in the cakes chapter right now, and I just got to the ice creams and smoothies. So this is not a recipe page. This is just like, I don't know how well you can see it. I don't think very well.
Yeah, ice cream.
Kind of. It's the book itself is gorgeous, and I had so much fun with my design team making the recipe photos just as pretty as the graphic design. But so here's a page of chocolate coffee cake. I'm just such a sucker for like rich dark chocolate cake.
Yeah.
So yeah, gonna be a fan of that. I have a dark chocolate jewel cake here, which is like just gorgeous, but also phenomenally delicious. And here I'm at apple pie muffins. I'm just turning to random pages because I actually like love almost like every single recipe in this book.
You use apricots too, don't you? In some of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dates, I mean, like dates, medjool dates, guys, like you got to get on the dates. Like dates, I promise, will make you happy. They are like the answer to everything. They're the answer to making an amazing sauce, a dressing, cupcakes, like smoothies. Like they make everything good in life. I swear, dates are so good. They're really just so delicious. Oh my gosh, they're so good.
Really amazing dates in California too. It's
like, I know that makes me really jealous. I have to like fly, whatever. Indiana, I can complain about it all day. But okay. And then I do have a funny question because I was actually listening to an interview or something. I think it was like on The Real Truth About Health with your dad. I don't even know where I heard it, but he was talking about like growing up. This is kind of off topic, but when you were growing up with Joel Fuhrman as your dad, and it was like Halloween and you went trick-or-treating, what did that look like? Because he said that you guys did not have a lot of like, that you would get mad about the candy situation. Like,
oh yeah. So we'll start out with what my mother did. We gave out glow sticks. Like we, at our house, we had like, I guess they would light up when you like twisted them, and then you'd put them on your neck, or like there would be necklaces or bracelets or ankle bracelets. And so all the kids did want to come to our house because they could get candy at all the other houses, but we had these badass glow sticks jewelry. Yeah. So I felt like we were the cool house in that regard. So I was fine with that. But then when it came to actual candy, or like, when you're young, you don't know about nutrition, you want the candy. So we were allowed to pick out 3 pieces from our like bag and have them. So at least we were allowed something. But 3 is when, your friends are allowed to have their whole bags or whatever they want, and you're allowed to have 3. I became a master manipulator.
I think that's what the story was about. Okay, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I knew where to hide candy. I knew where to find candy. Like, I remember the furniture that I hid it in. So.
Oh, that's so funny. I think every kid, no matter if they're like, if they have like a healthy like doctor as a dad, or like even me, like I was allowed pretty much as much candy as I wanted. Like I still hid it, like that stuff is addicting. It's like crack, like sugar. Man, oh my gosh. Okay, so that's funny. I just had to ask you about that and what your memories were on that. Okay, Talia, we're going to wrap it up here. Like we could talk about so many things in very deep detail, I'm sure. People will probably want to hear you back on this podcast at some point, but something that I ask every single person is, what does living a holistic life mean to you?
It means living with no regrets. So everybody on their deathbed seems to have some regret or another. I'm sure I'm going to be amongst them, but I'm all about minimizing my regrets, and I'm all about living life to the fullest, and living a holistic lifestyle means that I get to live my life to the fullest.
Okay. That was really good. And that just brings us back to how you said, you're living your childhood, like personality, like you are just fully you, Talia. And that's really, really awesome. Okay, friend, tell us where we can find you, where we can follow you. Again, we know where we can get your books, but you can say it again if you want to. We're going to include those links for sure. We're going to stay in touch with you. So how do we do all of that?
Yeah, so my Instagram is the social media that I am most active on. So that's just my name at Talia Fuhrman. There's a silent H in my last name. I'm sure you'll have it all in the show notes. And then I have, if people just want to follow my food page, that's at Talia's Treats on Instagram. Even my puppy has an Instagram that they can find if they follow me or whatnot. And then I also have a website, food blog, that's also my name, taliafuhrman.com. And the book right now is not on Amazon. It will be in about 6 months from now. But for now, it's on my father's website, drfuhrman.com, in the shop and all of that jazz. So
love it. Love it. Okay. So you guys, honestly, this book can be truly life-changing for you. If you're having issues with food addiction, it's probably just sugar, oil, and salt. And like, if you can get on these whole plant foods and really understand how amazing these life-giving foods are, it can completely transform your life. My whole transformation started with a vegan cupcake book years ago, but these recipes are next level. And honestly, I guarantee your life will change in some way if you buy the book and try these recipes. So Talia, thank you so much, my friend. Thank you for inspiring us, and thank you for being you and being a light in this world and just sharing your light. It's just amazing. Thanks,
thank you for having me, Stacy. It's been so much fun talking to you. And I know that we're so like-minded, and so is your audience. And I love spreading the good energy.
Oh, thanks, friend. Take care.
I'm over here cheering you on because you just finished another episode of The Urban Pharmacy. For today's show notes, head on over to theurbanpharmacy.com and be sure to join us inside our private Facebook group called The Urban Pharmacy, where we share inspiration, live trainings, and holistic living tips to help you build community and the healthy lifestyle that you've always wanted. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button and please consider leaving us a 5-star review. Before we connect again on the next show, follow me on Instagram at The Urban Pharmacy. That's urban with an H and pharmacy with an F. And I can't wait to hear your wellness journey as we get to know each other better. There's truly no better time than now to level up your life, and I am so proud of you for showing up today. Until next time, be well, Health Crusader.